the 8 a.m. podcast, presented by Train the Teacher.
You know, you're about to speak up in English, you've got the idea clear in your head, but then that little voice starts worrying if every single word, every tense is going to be absolutely perfect.
Yeah, that hesitation.
You pause, maybe, and suddenly it all feels a bit fuzzy. What if, just maybe, speaking with confidence actually counts for more than, perfect grammar?
That's a really interesting thought.
Well, we recently got a whole bunch of sources from listeners actually looking at exactly this.
Oh, really? What kind of things?
It's a mix articles, some research findings, personal stories too, all sort of pointing to the power of confident speaking in English, even if it isn't flawless.
Okay, so that's what we're diving into today.
That's the mission. We're going to unpack these sources for you, see what the research says, look at some examples, and sort of pull out the key ideas that challenge this notion, this pressure, that you need perfect English before you can speak with conviction.
Sounds good. Where should we start?
Well, let's talk about that hesitation feeling first. It's super common, right?
Oh, definitely.
You have something valuable to say, a great point, and you're ready, but then you get tangled up in the mechanics. Is it make a decision or take? Interested in or interested about?
Right, those little things, they can totally break your flow.
Exactly. And one of the notes we received had this great relatable story. It was about a young engineer, I think, preparing for a big presentation.
Okay.
His technical ideas were brilliant, apparently, but he was just agonizing over his English. Spending the night before stressing about using the passive voice correctly, things like that.
I can picture that. So many people feel that pressure.
Totally. But here's where it gets interesting. According to this account, in the meeting, he basically just took a breath and went for it.
Okay.
And yeah, he apparently did make a few grammatical slips. I mean, let's be honest, who doesn't? But the key was he kept eye contact, spoke clearly, and really focused on getting his ideas across with conviction.
Right. Focused on the substance.
Yes, and the result.
Let me guess, people weren't pulling out their grammar guides. Not at all. His colleagues were, nodding along, engaged with his message. By the end, he actually got applause for his insights.
Wow.
So the sources really highlight this. His confidence, the clarity of his main point, it overshadowed the minor language errors. It really makes you think, where's the listener's focus?
That's a fantastic example. So why does that happen? According to the research in these sources, why does confidence seem to weigh so heavily in how we're perceived?
Good question. What did the studies say?
Well, it seems confidence really shapes how listeners perceive you. The studies we look through suggest that listeners, maybe subconsciously, can link hesitation, or even sometimes just a non-native accent, with a lack of confidence.
Okay.
And sometimes, maybe unfairly, that gets linked to a lack of intelligence or credibility. Basically, if you sound unsure, people might just assume you're unsure about your actual ideas, even if the ideas themselves are solid.
So the delivery really impacts the perception of the content itself.
It seems so. It's often more about that delivery, that perceived certainty, than the underlying grammatical perfection.
That's quite powerful, isn't it? It means the listener isn't just processing words, they're taking in the whole package, your body language, your tone.
Exactly, your whole presentation.
Yeah.
Think about this analogy one of the articles used. Imagine you're lost, right?
Yeah.
And you ask two people for directions.
Okay.
Person one, maybe they have a perfect native accent, but they're kind of mumbling, looking down, seem really hesitant. Person two, maybe they have quite a strong accent, but they speak up, look you in the eye, give the directions clearly, assertively. Who do you trust more?
Oh, the second person. Easily. Every single time.
Right. And that gut feeling, well, the research seems to back it up. There's this fascinating study mentioned, I think it was from McGill University.
McGill, okay.
Yeah, they specifically tested this. And they found that when a speaker with a non-native accent spoke really confidently, listeners rated them as just as believable, just as credible as a native speaker.
Wow. So confidence can actually bridge that perception gap.
It really seems it can. It shifts the focus, doesn't it? Away from tiny grammatical details and more towards the overall impact you make, your conviction.
Yeah, it really does. Okay, so what about that fear, though? The fear of making a mistake. Tripping over a tense, using the wrong article. If you're still stuck on that, what does the material say?
Yes. Well, the sources have a pretty strong message here. It is profoundly, completely, well, basically, Utterly okay to make mistakes.
This feels like such a crucial point. Because English is, well, it's famously tricky, full of exceptions.
Totally inconsistent sometimes. And importantly, the sources remind us native speakers. We make mistakes all the time.
Right. I mean, listen to everyday conversations.
Exactly. People mix up lie and lay. You hear folks say, I should have gone instead of I should have gone.
Yeah.
Using subjective pronouns where technically objective ones fit.
Like between you and I.
Precisely. One source even mentioned a book humorously titled Between You and I, because it's such a common, technically wrong phrase that native speakers use constantly.
Huh. What?
The point being, fluency and confident communication. They often develop alongside accuracy, sometimes even a bit ahead of perfect, robotic accuracy. Making slips doesn't mean you're not a good English speaker, it just means you're a normal human speaker.
That's such a helpful way to frame it. It feels less like trying to navigate a minefield.
Yeah.
And more like just, well, talking. Like the material suggests language is basically a tool, right, for communication. It's not some test you fail if you drop an A or a the.
Exactly. And the listener, assuming they're actually engaged with what you're saying, they're likely focused on your ideas, the substance, not, mentally red penning your prepositions.
Right. Their focus is elsewhere.
And even if someone does offer a correction, gently, it's usually just a learning moment, not some disaster.
Yeah.
The main thing is keeping that communication channel open, keeping your ideas flowing.
Okay, so that leads pretty directly to another big recommendation from the sources, doesn't it? About prioritizing fluency.
Yes, exactly. Prioritize fluency over chasing this sort of unattainable perfection right from the start. Think about it. In a real conversation or a meeting, do you want to sound like a halting robot pausing every 2 seconds to check verb conjugations?
No, definitely not.
Or do you want to sound like a natural, fluid human? Fluidity usually wins in real life. And the language learning research that was mentioned suggests that focusing on conversational fluency doesn't actually hurt your long-term accuracy.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, by just getting comfortable using the language, you create more chances to hear it, use it more, and sort of naturally self-correct over time. Practicing communication actually helps improve both fluency and accuracy eventually.
So the practical advice is pretty straightforward then, but maybe hard to follow sometimes. Just speak English as much as possible.
Basically, yes. Don't shy away from chances to use it. Jump into that discussion group, volunteer an answer, order your coffee with a smile, even if you fumble a word or two.
Try out new words, new phrases, even if you're not 100% sure.
Absolutely. That's how you learn, how you build that comfort and that confidence. It's like your brain has this internal GPS, right?
Okay.
The more you actually navigate the language, the more it recalculates, refines those little pathways.
Yeah.
Every time you speak confidently, even with imperfections, you're reinforcing the confidence muscle and chipping away at the fear.
It comes back to connection, really. Language is for making connections. Your listener, ideally, wants to connect with your ideas, your passion, your viewpoint, and they're much more likely to notice your enthusiasm, your clarity, your confidence, long before they'd even register a slightly misplaced article or an off-verb tense.
Exactly. So just to maybe pull the main threads together from these sources.
Yeah, let's recap.
Okay. We've seen some pretty compelling evidence, and those analogies too, showing how vital confidence is, in shaping how listeners perceive you.
Right, that perception piece is huge.
Then we acknowledge that making mistakes, totally normal.
Yeah.
Even native speakers do it. It's not a sign of failure.
A big relief for many, I think.
And we highlighted the practical wisdom of really focusing on fluency, on genuine communication, letting accuracy improve through that practice, rather than being frozen by trying to be perfect immediately.
Which often isn't even necessary for effective communication.
Precisely. Your ideas, your perspective, they're valuable. And your confidence in sharing them can absolutely shine through, even with a few language slips along the way.
Language as a tool for connection, not a grammar test designed to trip you up.
Well put. And, this whole deep dive, it really encourages us to maybe challenge our own habits, our own fears around speaking English.
Yeah.
The sources kind of leave us with this powerful challenge.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
They ask us, and you listening, to think about something specific, something you've held back from saying in English, maybe recently, just because you were worried about making a mistake.
Okay. Could be anything. A question in a meeting, a thought with a friend.
Exactly. Or just joining a casual chat. Got something in mind?
Yeah, I think I do.
Okay. Now, picture that same situation. But this time, you actually speak up. You say the thing you hesitated on. You say it clearly, confidently, maybe allowing for a small slip-up if it happens. How does that act, just choosing confidence, how does that potentially change the outcome? How might that message land differently?
It feels
Yeah.
completely different, more impactful. The idea actually gets heard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So here's that final thought for you, the listener, inspired directly by the material we looked at. What will you choose to say next, confidently, that maybe you hesitated on before?
Don't let the fear of a tiny error silence a valuable thought or a potential connection. Go on, speak your English, speak it loud, speak it clearly, and just trust that your confidence might be the most persuasive thing you say.